Hello everyone, and hold on, let me know all my audio is messed up again. I don't know how well you all can hear me, but there we go. Now things are right on my end. How is everybody? It is Monday. I almost forgot it was Monday. Good morning, Daryl. How are you doing? Good morning, Adam K. How are you? It's Monday. Holy crap, it's Monday. So I've spent 3 days, intermittently with rain, trying to put a pool together, and I'm not done yet. At about 4 o'clock today, I'm going to go work on the sand and the lining, because this is a big pool. Did I get myself a drink? Yes, I did, because I've got like cottonmouth going on. Not really cottonmouth, but it is Monday. How is everybody? Just sort of waiting for everyone to file in and say hello. There is another holiday coming for us Americans, the 4th of July, and I'm noticing fireworks for sale everywhere. And I haven't been paid for my job to go buy any. Not that I really can afford to, because it's got to go to bills. I got to make sure things are taken care of. Start trying to figure out a way to put some money aside for other things. But my mind was a little at wander. I've been out for the last 3 days working on this job most of the day, and it's been rainy, so my yard has been in disarray because my wife pulls out the hose to water the plants, but when she puts it back, she doesn't roll it up, so there's that. I am slowly on my side. I gotta figure out how to get rid of the clicking noise when I do this stuff, but let's look at a game board. And I do want to apologize to anybody who looks forward to the shows on Wednesdays and Fridays, but again, like I tried to mention on Wednesday, with jobs coming up, and these are side freelance jobs that I have no idea how long they're going to take. I am going to try to run the show on my regular schedule and keep the schedule going, but if a job comes up, it's worth a little more to me right now than my hobby. So jobs, go money in the bank, because I need some of that. But I don't want to sit here and talk about money. I want to play a game. Well, sort of a game.
Welcome to the Great Debate.
And welcome, Cryptic, to the chat. How are you doing today? I periodically go through and try to remember what I'm doing from time to time. Oh, and I'm not doing it right. I have a policy, and I don't get many donations, so I often forget about my little donation policy. But my policy is, basically, for every penny you donate, you get a bone. So I'm supposed to reward you, because for some reason my bot won't automatically do it because of YouTube, with 1,000 bones. Let's see if that worked. Yes, it did. Look at that. You now have an extra 1,000 bones. Enjoy those. Here we have a board. On this board, we have 18 topics. Of these 18 topics, there is a statement or a question or just something to talk about in that topic. We have roughly 3 viewers here this morning so far. Who wants to pick the first one? Dun dun. I think I only have a few second delay. Shouldn't be too bad. Give you guys a chance to look at the board, take a sip of that morning coffee, which mine's been gone for a couple hours. I should really go get another coffee, but I have kids at home, and that means I have to take them with me. Meanwhile, after this, I have to walk to the bank so I can pay a bill, and thus carry on the movement of money. Sorry, trying to find out where I put my drink. It's too far away. Let's see. How was everybody's weekend? Did everybody hear about the Time magazine fiasco that was going on? I personally would like to comment on something about the news, and it just seems like the news, and I do look at the news for information. Why do they strive so hard for a story, and they send people all over the world and try to put people at all sorts of events to get the story. So why is it they selectively then decide which stories they're going to post? I'm behind the times with it. If you selectively choose which stories to post, so you're going to portray a school shooting in Parkland, Florida, but you're not going to portray a shooting in New Jersey. You're going to show us Las Vegas shooting, but you're not going to show us normal footage of shootings that happen in Chicago every day, or Detroit, or several other large cities that have daily homicides, daily suicides, daily news, but we don't hear about that, even if it matches up to the importance of another story that we do hear about that just helps explain the narrative. Welcome, Doku. Welcome, Angry Amish Hitman. How you doing, Dewey? We're waiting for somebody to pick a topic. Meanwhile, I'm just jibber-jabbering about what I see in my right now very limited time on the internet, the last few days, obviously, but I have tried to catch as much as I can. Which brings me to another topic that has anyone else noticed, and this isn't a complaint, this is an observation, that when you go on YouTube, let's say you grab your phone and you're looking to fill in your break time or your lunch or whatever it is, and you're just looking for content. Sat down yesterday because it was raining, and I was looking for something that would be 10 or 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes to watch, half an hour or so, and wait for the rain to pass over. And I noticed there's a lot of streams, and rewards it is. And I'm not against streams, obviously, because I primarily am streaming right now instead of videos, but I'm noticing even heavy video creators have gone primarily to streaming, and it's hard to find videos. So I'm consistently writing my ideas down, and when I have time, I will work on those. So let's talk about some rewards, because Daryl thinks rewards would be fun. The highest financial benefit comes from the most risky investments. How do you invest in a market like this? This is a complicated one, and I've had some recent conversations with people, and I'm sure some of you in the chat are hopefully going to toss me your input on this. But I received a large sum of money when my mother passed. And when I say a large sum of money, I mean tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands. I mean about 25, 30 grand after everything else was paid for, if that. And the best thing I could decide to do was invest in something that would help me through the future. So I bought a house, and I bought a house at just under half of its market value. It needed work. I invested money into it. I'm probably invested another quarter already of the house's value into it. So I pretty much put almost everything I got from my mom after paying for her bills and taking care of the things I needed to and paying for the court and the burial and all of the fees and everything. After all of that, which I'm not entirely finished with, by the way, because some of it takes time. After all of that, I invested just about everything else into a home. Owning the home for myself because I was living in my mom's home. And legal issues aside, if something's not in your name, it's really hard to do things with. Just put that out there. I'm looking at my investment a year later. And of all of the money I've put into this home, I still have several more things that need to be done, other things that should be done, and things I would like to do. Now, obviously, like-to-do items, if they aren't little to no cost, don't get done right now. The must-get-dones have been completed, and any and all funds I had remaining were set aside to cover things that I knew were coming that I'd have to pay for. And I tried to plan reasonably ahead. Now, this money sat in the bank for a while. And I don't know if anybody knows what you get out of $1,000 sitting in a bank account right now. That it used to be if you put $1,000 in the bank, a year later you probably earn like $30 or $40 over the APR. You know, it was 6.5 or 5 point something percent APR. And over the last, I want to say 5 to 7 years, if you have a savings account and you stick money in it, that APR has dropped to, well, with over $1,000 sitting in there for the purpose of paying a specific bill and testing to see what I could make out of it, made 2 cents a month. 0.0, or was it 0.3? 0.3%. I make 2 cents a month off of $1,000. Tangible assets are a good place to start. Physical bullion, houses, guns can be considered an investment. Avoid flat currency and bonds those represent debt and therefore have risk of default. Here's my question. I invested in a house. I invested wisely because I paid half of the cost. I invested a lot of money. If I wanted to turn around, which I don't, and sell this house, I could easily sell this house and take myself out of every last bit of debt I have, end up with probably twice the leftover assets of what I had when I bought the house. So I would be able to buy another house, but that becomes difficult. Stocks. Let's look at stocks. I was thinking about investing in stocks because it's a high output or a high loss. And if you invest $1,000 and you make $3,000 out of it, you make a 300% gain. I'm not going to get that out of a house. I'm not going to get that out of a savings account. At the same time, you could invest that $1,000 and end up owing your agent a couple hundred for moving the money around for you. So that's not necessarily a good investment either. Not to mention the fact that if you look at the stock market, I see something I don't know how many people see. And I'm not an analyst or a strategist, or I don't monitor the market. But when you see the stock market make a huge climb like it has in the last year and a half, 2 years, and now you're starting to see a slow decline in that market, and the decline's not fast enough to pay attention to, and there's still enough green arrows to supersede the red arrows. Now, again, I don't watch the market. I just kind of skim over and half pay attention to when it's said. Is right now the best time to invest in the market? If you, instead of thinking the market's headed upwards, you're really not sure again. And if too many people dump all their money into the market right now and the market crashes, all that money's gone. And I can't afford to lose what little I have. Welcome, Malevolent Ride, to the chat. Interest rates are savings are shit. You have to beat the 2% mark just to maintain purchasing power due to target inflation rate. Right. If you wanna make an investment off of anything, you want to see an increase that's measurable or realistic. For instance, I'm not going to divulge a bunch of numbers, but I am on a committee for a cemetery where a lot of my family members are buried. And that committee bases the hiring of those who do the management of the property and the mowing based on the interest rate they receive from the account. And the account, basically a certain amount has to go in there from every burial and can't be touched for the purpose of accruing interest to pay for the maintenance and care of the property. That interest rate has fallen so low in the last year that they now are looking for, volunteers. They're looking for volunteers to come mow the cemetery with their own fuel and their own equipment because they can't afford to pay a company or anybody to come do it. And that's kind of sad when you think about there is more money in that account than I will ever see in my life. And the return on the money in that account is it's about less than my it's about my monthly income right now. So that's not saying a lot, because my monthly income is not that high yet. Looking for more jobs. Too bad I'm not talking to like a local chat and I could be like, hey, I do contract work. But moving on, because as Malevolent Rider says, the time is up. What shall we listen to next? My mother didn't have a will, and my sister doesn't want to talk to a lawyer, nor open an estate, and she doesn't want to change the name on the house title. I've been told we will be slapped with fines. She won't listen to me. You're going to have a problem. If you wanted to create the estate, you should have done it while your mom was alive. That would have protected you and your sister. Once your mom passed away, somebody has to take the legal representation to transfer all assets to somebody else. Once somebody else is in control of the assets, whether it be the executor or not, the executor can place those assets into an estate. However, in order to create an estate, you want to ideally have assets that are $100,000 or more. So technically, as the executor of my mom's estate, I can transfer, once I finish the paperwork on the other property into an estate with the current property I own, and then I can hold a family estate, which means I can lock up the properties and any other funds, open new accounts devoted to the properties. There's a whole bunch of stuff I can do with that. To do an estate, though, all parties involved in the estate have to be living. Once you create the estate, you can add new parties and remove parties based on who's living and not. There's a lot to do with this. I know a bit, but I'm sure what I know is only scratching the surface. Whatever are we going to discuss next? Ooh, we got a bone heist. Oh, no, that's Skullbot. If she won't listen to you, your best bet is just to literally just go to Google and type in a simple, what do I do when my mother passes away without a will? Now, I had a will, but the will I had was an unverified copy, and the verified copy was ripped up in front of me. I signed an attestment form to that, and both my sisters signed their rights to delegate her property around. So I'm basically in charge. All I have to do is figure out what I'm doing with the property and go from there. Pinoid, welcome. That sounds funny to say. Pinoid news. Or is it Pinoid News? He's been showing up everywhere lately. He's fun to listen to. Definitely got that city structure to his tone. I can definitely hear that. Daryl Odell is planning a bone heist. Nice. Was the guest I had in mind? Oh, yeah. He and I were talking. We just got to figure out when to get him on. So, what shall we talk about next? Or should I ramble on about nanobots? Because it was the first word that came to my mouth. No, I don't want to ramble about nanobots. Because nanobots make me think of Stargate and the replicators. General school. Let's talk about school. My mouth. Basic education has grown too large. It should only include how to read, write, and do math. I wonder. We look at our education system today as almost a daycare to teach children what parents should be weaning children into. A couple hundred years ago, schools were institutions where people could get together and learn reading, writing, and math that their parents necessarily couldn't teach them. We've moved into a society where parents, they do a job, but the job doesn't necessarily include being able to bring their children in and teach them how to do that job. So you can't teach them about things that you don't necessarily know. And so schools try to pick up that slack. What about history and science? Those are things that, for the most part, your history is taught to you by your society and those around you. It could be taught in school. Maybe it should be taught in school. But at what point do you include enough curriculum to make school no longer learning basically how to think and stuff you don't already know into over teaching kids things that never will matter to them because they already have a plan, or they don't think in the structure of the way the education is being taught? I disagree. It should also include critical thinking. Things like philosophy and public speaking, history and civics are important, and each high school senior needs it of personal finance and basic economics. Okay, so I actually really agree with you there, Doku. My thought on school is when we're kids, and I always try to compare ourselves to how we as a species learn to develop to where we are. I think students, when they're young, should be taught basics. They should be taught what most students are being taught about A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, and things like that. They should also be taught things like how to make fire, how to basically make fire. When we learned how, with a string and a stick or a flint, and it doesn't matter. I think what it is that we get so caught up in being taught that, well, this is how you look up information, and this is how you look at this, and this is how you read this, and these are words that you need to know, instead of, well, this is what information is, and this is where it is. Go. Teach somebody about something and allow them to make the decision to move towards that path, kind of. Survival and agriculture, that's what I'm kind of trying to put into words. It would be great for people, and this is just the tip of the iceberg of my thinking, obviously. Survival and agriculture should be taught to kids between 5 and 10. These are core how to survive items, how to find or make drinkable water, how to start a fire, what's healthy and unhealthy to eat, what plants are and are not acceptable to use for medicinal, non-medicinal purposes. Hey, by the way, this is poison ivy. Hey, by the way, this is poison sumac. Hey, by the way, this is that. This snake will kill you. This snake won't. Tartarine, welcome to the chat. We should have a tri-party caste system, and each caste should have a specialized education. Maybe. I'm not entirely fond of caste systems breaking people up. The problem is, I see people as learning different. And if you start to teach basics of learning instead of where we are and how we got there, let's start with the basics: how to make fire, how to purify water, how to survive, kind of thing like that, and then move people up towards learning, okay, so in history, this is how we did it, now this is how we do it. You understand the process of thinking that allowed people to get from where we were to where we are, and then also allow them the ability to use what they have at home and all around them, and then they can learn more. Going back, also, other things that affect people should be taught in school. You shouldn't necessarily be focusing so much on what happened during World War I and World War II as much as you should be focusing on, by the way, if you walk outside with a pellet gun and shoot it across the street and it hits a car, that's a felony. Let's teach kids what some of the basic laws and rules are as they start to get into their young teenage years, so they understand that as teenagers you are becoming of an age where if you do things, they are wrong and you will be punished for them, and these are the laws and these are the punishments, and here is some everyday society thing, here are some rules, here's other information. But it seems in all of the education even that I've got, one thing that doesn't get covered as much until you get into like high specificity of something is the laws regarding what's around you. I didn't know doesn't work in court. It's your responsibility, but the reason you didn't know is because you were never told. There's nothing in the system to teach people about the laws that are coming. Some people don't go to Boy Scouts, Darrow Odell. I had an idea for public schools where perhaps, say, a roof or a greenhouse, the kids can grow some crops and turn around and donate the produce to homeless shelters. Here's an idea. If schools had to grow crops, they could run much like prison institutions where the schools grow the crops for their own cafeterias. That also instills confidence and ability in somebody that they took part in something greater than them. It's easier than we've thought. We've all gotten away with some... Oh, that's the bot. Kids have even volunteered soup kitchens and earned some credits. Plus, it would great on a resume or college application. Absolutely. As the time ends, I will conclude by saying I like some of the education system. I think the testing and the checking to see where students are from the Bush era, No Child Left Behind, has certainly hindered us. And the way we've gotten away from it, the stuff that we've taught in school, while could be construed as important, isn't necessarily ground building or establishing the critical thinking that needs to be in school. Are kids being taught how we got to where we are? Are they being taught that where we are is here, and in order to move on, we believe you need to do this to help? But maybe the caste system isn't a correct solution, but part of my point was we can touch everyone today with the standards of an elite set for itself in the past. It's not meant to work in mass. Well, right. Again, if you go to different school areas, tell me why a school in Minnesota is going to teach the same curriculum as a school in Florida and is going to teach the same curriculum as a school in Oregon. They're all going to be learning different things. They're affected by different environmental standards. They're affected by different laws. They're affected by different climates. They're affected by different geography. They're affected by so many different things that the school shouldn't be teaching, or the school should be teaching more close to home. And yes, there should be a set of precedents that the federal government would like taught in all schools, and those should also include information about what's legal and what's not, and how we are where we are, information, and not, just thinking it's gonna help. I'm tired of, and I understand I was even a part of this, students being tested on to see if the changes being made to education are beneficial or not. And yeah, life skills, Doku, thank you. It seems that some states that I've been in, some of the state curriculum that they send down or they send out to parents, or you can read online if you go into it, the questions are changed almost to try and keep up with everything going on. It's not necessarily trying to teach information, but trying to teach what's going on, and that doesn't work. We need a new topic, though, because that's the name of the game. Well, no, the name of the game is The Great Debate, but that's how the game's played. Something like that. But yeah, I do believe life skills. Now, in one of my classes, I think I learned a little bit of checkbooking and how to keep records there. In a home ec class, I learned a little bit about cooking and sewing. I've taken classes. I have no problem. I've learned some stuff that I think was greatly beneficial. But if I'd have taken classes that taught how we got to the points we are in certain areas, I would have loved that class. How did we get from creating fire to electricity to plasma to any of this? And then granted, some of this is obviously over the head. Doku keeps speaking. I got one. Movies or technology, the crowd can help me. And then Doku says, sex. I think Doku picked the last one. We'll let Doku and Riger argue it out in the chat. Round 1. Fuck, I'll just pick sex. I like sex. Why not? Everybody likes sex, don't they? Unless you're asexual. CFNM, BDSM, MGTOW, Incel, Feminist, SJW, Anti-Feminist, Trans, Non-Binary. Who do I ask for a blowjob? Did we kill God and replace it with government? No, we shot him with a tranquilizer. He's being held in a cage. We'll discuss that later. Here's an odd question. And you know it's weird. This isn't a question I wrote today, obviously, because it hasn't been picked in a while. I was driving home yesterday. And I've mentioned this before, and other people have mentioned this before. In the time that we live in, it's really hard to try and decide what it is that you're looking for, or what direction to go in, or how to go about getting what you're looking for. Depending on what it is you're looking for, obviously. I was driving down the street, and I saw from a distance what looked like a beautiful figure. And I'm telling you, it looked great. You know, that V-top, the long hair, beautiful legs, short shorts, nice weather. Hey, Dada. And as it gets closer and closer, so I pull up to a stoplight, and I say, questioning my terminology sometimes, was walking down the street. And I tell you, the walk was perfect. But the closer she got and the more I looked, the more things just didn't look right. Now, don't take this the wrong way, any women or even men in the chat, but it's something my grandma said. Movies. We'll do movies next. Why not? And I apologize to your grandma for this conversation. It's something about looking at women. And I look at a lot of women. Yeah, I do. When you see most women, understandably some, you can tell, push their tits together to close that gap and make it look like they got more. And you can tell that. But most women don't do that. And this woman, one of the first things that I noticed was that her cleavage was very pressed together and very pressed up, which, judging by the frame of the body, didn't quite seem right. And then the closer she got, the legs were just a little off. And then closer, the face. And the clothes that were being worn on the day they were being worn by the person they were being worn by covered up certain things you couldn't tell. And so, as the light turned green and I drove on, I did what I normally do with women, and I turned to look at the ass. And for the type of woman this was, that wasn't the proper ass. Now, I say that knowing different women. I've seen beautiful women that you think would have a big ass, but they got that tiny little round butt. And I've seen differences in things. But being exposed to the world I'm exposed to, having the conversations that I have, I drove away from that scene feeling like I just saw a very well-passing cross-dresser. And that left me in my mind, how do I feel about that? So, me being married, I don't have to worry about it too much. But let's say I just wanted to stop for a quick, infidelity? Infidelity. Have a little fun, get my dick wet. Why not? What would I get out of that? Not the experience. I know what I'd get out of the experience, but is that a man or a woman? Is it a manly-looking woman or a womanly-looking man? And are the tits real? And these are questions I have. And if I, STD, if I have these questions, other people, maybe not everyone, are going to have these questions. They're going to not only question themselves, they're going to question how they see things. They're going to question how they go about things. They're going to question what it is they're into. If you're looking at this relatively 7, a lot of looking girl, attractive, but then certain things make you think, oh, it might be a man. I can't touch that. I'm not going to go near it for the possibility, the probability, the inevitability that it could be a man. I'm not going to go near it. Doesn't that... And this is, again, what the SJWs fight for, but isn't that a problem? Like, if I find out it's a man, I don't think I want to touch it. No. No. If I don't find out it's a man, am I okay with the blowjob? Am I? If I think it's a man, would I still be okay with getting the blowjob? If I'm a MGTOW, am I okay with the blowjob? Do I have to make sure it's a man first? If I'm an incel, do I take it regardless? And am I still an incel if I'm still not getting it from actual women? All of this stuff that's been added into the current way we talk about our interactions is definitely going to confuse people, to say the least. But it's also going to scare people. Not to a point where they're outwardly phobic of a situation, but where the phobia comes into the not knowing. People have a natural inherent desire to know, to understand, and to assign a characteristic to things that allow them to understand it, to move on and assign it in their brain through a location that they can recall it easily. And if you can't, if you have difficulty assigning something to a location in your brain, you're not going to recall it, you're going to dwell on it because your brain's trying to contextualize it to where you'll understand it. And what do you do? Who do you ask for a blowjob when a fear sits in the back of your head that weird-looking lady might not actually be a lady? Isn't that a good question? And maybe it's just me. I don't think I'm the only one seeing trans people where there aren't trans people, and non-trans people where there are trans people. I don't know. I'm scared. But we need to talk about some movies. Dude looks like a lady. Ha, ha. Dude looks like a lady. I can't do that long. That's going to hurt. Are sci-fi movies trying to slowly destigmatize the population to what might be happening? Bum, bum, bum. Obviously this kind of goes to Data. He's over there going, rubbing his hands together, going, yes, yes, where can I direct this? Do we have aliens in space? Are we flying spaceships? Is there an invisible carrier with like helicopter projectors above us and they have jets and other things that mysteriously disappear and a lady with an eye patch and some black hair and a lot of leather? Wait. Space Force! Thank you, by the way. My grandma helped me pick that one. Yes? Yes, they are. Space Force. Yes, 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 yes. Data. See, I told you Data was going to love this one. You have to wonder... some of what we see depicted in sci-fi, obviously older generations like myself and Data, we remember Star Trek and the premise that Gene Roddenberry developed Star Trek from. And that premise was the concepts and the ideas and the technology used in Star Trek were scientific theories thought to be real, and they tried to incorporate things in science and sort of socially into the show to help build on it. So, in reality then, everything on the Enterprise is possible. So if it's all possible, is it probable? Do we have ships that can do what we think ships can do because we think ships can do them based on the technology and how we understand it? And I think it's very plausible. And Data's going to love this. I think it's highly likely that we absolutely have technology that's far advanced from what we think we have. Do I believe the technology is necessarily readily available and easily marketed or easily constructed and used even by the government? No. Because, as we know, the more specific the technology gets, the more expensive it seems to get. The more components and parts that are less generic, the higher probability of something getting out. And I've discussed that before, even with Data. And it's hard to hide something at such a large scale. But at what point do you stop and go, okay, but the whole intention being to hide it, if we had ships that could go into space, they're probably doing it regularly. And we'd maybe not know about it because of when and how and the way they do it. And it is, government or high-level secret black ops organizations, doesn't matter. It almost seems like these movies, in some cases, kind of trickling in this technology or easing us into what may be a reality. And if we're being eased into a reality by the science fiction that we're being presented, what is this reality we're being eased into? What is it that's really happening that we're being showed to? What is it we're being directed at or desensitized towards? Well, if you see enough zombies attack, when the zombie apocalypse happens, you kind of know what to do and are half ready. So if our zombie virus gets loose, some of the population will survive. They know what to do. We taught them from all of those movies we let out. Let's see. As they say, science fiction precedes science fact. The Nautilus was the very first submarine built by the Germans. Was it the Germans? Yes. I believe the Nautilus was the very first submarine built by the Germans. The Nautilus, named by the Germans, was named after the submarine in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, written by Jules Verne, almost 50 years before the submarine was invented. Original scuba gear even mimicked that which they were testing at the time the book was written, which is those large, heavy metal cylinders with the glass masks with the log hose. And even then, they took a little creative liberty on that. No, even zombies, that's right. To push back, most of these concepts have been around for centuries, obviously. However, when you look at our sci-fi concepts, the ideas, the thoughts, the premise of, maybe an alien technology landed their ship on top of a pyramid. Okay, maybe that's been around. But some of the things that we have in things like Stargate, do we have a dial that we can create wormholes? Maybe not, but maybe it's something they're working on. Or maybe it's something we have but don't understand. It wasn't a physical entity, though it resembled one that could call energy moving through the sky, and there was no sound from wildlife when it passed. It was really fucking odd. I have some footage of it. Yeah. Also, you have to think, wildlife responds on frequencies, and whether we realize it or not, we also respond on frequencies. So if frequencies are put out by a ship or something, then the wildlife will obviously respond. We know how to make wildlife respond, and how to make them quiet? Maybe? I don't know. That gets into a weird thing. But it just seems, sometimes, and we were talking about this in different scenarios, and I think the Thunderfoot video where if the Enterprise was actually sitting next to the moon, we couldn't really see it. Unless we were specifically looking for it, but by then wouldn't it move? I'm off to Optic Decay. Tell him I said hello. I was there, but I didn't say hello. I was just listening while I set up. Data says we would love to see it, Doku. Yes, we would. I think Doku is in our server, or in my server. Drop it in the server, we'll look. Yes, Data's in the Discord. Oh, after this. Alright, well then I'll probably join you too, depending on what else is on and what my kids are doing. But I think we're all being desensitized to the possibility that there is technology out there that we understand, we know about, but we don't realize is real because the only place we've seen it is in science fiction. So, there's that. It's a weird thought to think about. Could be true, could be false. It's another conspiracy. Alright, I think we have time for... Wow, time's moving fast today. I think we have time for more, though. I have to video it from my tablet since I keep it disconnected from the internet. Okay. Hello, TCA, and welcome. I've shown a few people. It's really strange. I love strange videos. They make the hair on the back of my neck tingle, and the spots in the back of my neck light up with the hematite magnet. Wait, where is that? I need to have a better way to do my soundboard. The art of the stories in the past is now considered mythologies. The art of stories of the past is now considered mythology. Okay. Join my Discord. Am I in your Discord, Ryder? I'm not going to do it right this second, but I'll go back to it if I remember. What are we doing next? Somebody had something. I think Data came in with something, and I don't remember what it was. Let me scroll up here and see if I can... No, I've lost myself. There's so much chat in here. There's so much chat. I don't even know where I'm looking. Movie time. Picked movies. Data. I'm next. Data. Where is it? It's here somewhere. Why can't I see it? What are we doing? Let's do politics, says Duko. Well, I will join you then later. But, Goku, politics is a great idea. It's been a while. Maybe. Is a nation's border an invisible line with no meaning? Yes. And no. It is an invisible line with no meaning. Technically, it doesn't move, you don't see it, and it has no bearing on everyday life. Do you know our border crossing locations? The United States border crossing locations aren't necessarily right on the border. And in some cases, the borders between countries are actual two separate borders with a zone in between, depending on the countries and the treaties that the countries have. So, it is kind of an invisible line with no meaning, right? Does that mean you should cross that invisible line? So, I have grass in my front yard. There's no fence in my front yard, and the grass in my front yard is right next to the driveway for my neighbor. Is the grass part of the neighbor's driveway? Does that mean that he can push his driveway over the grass if he wishes? No, because there's an invisible property line that we both follow right there. And by following the property line, I take care of my side and he takes care of his side. And on the divergence where the two lines connect, we both kind of came up with an agreement on how to take care of that portion where our property connects, where the trees and other things are. And that agreement is based on the invisible line between us. And the invisible line isn't where the trees are, but the trees go over the invisible line. And the invisible line isn't where I do have a small portion of fence going up a hill where I have vines growing. But it's representative of where the invisible line is. So, yeah, it's an invisible line. But we still both understand that it is a line. We understand that it partitions our two pieces. And we understand that the rules on his side and the rules on my side are different. And we treat it that way. For instance, the rules on his side. My kids are free to, run across the driveway and through the grass if they need to on his side. But on my side, my kids are not free to cross the driveway. So the rules are different. His are lenient, mine are not. But does that mean that my kids should be crossing the driveway to go to his side because his rules are more lenient? Wow, that was a great analogy I didn't intend to use. Markers might be a better term. No, maybe not, because if you think, Doku, even our national border wall on the south side is not on the national border line. It's on our side, if that makes any sense. If we were to build a wall with Canada, the wall wouldn't be on the border. It would be on our side of the border, because it's our wall. You have an understanding, usually, between two sides. In the cases of governments, usually a treaty or some sort of diplomacy that says, you kids get off my grass, that says that you make agreements because you share a border. And me and my neighbor have an unwritten agreement. It's verbal. We just talk. Never heard of the LA Beast. You see where I'm going, but it's still I can see where you're coming from, but it's still a border. Yes, it's still a border. It is an invisible line with no meaning. The border is on your side, And on our side of that invisible line with no meaning, we have a wall and we have laws. And while the rules and the wall and the laws may be different or non-existent on the other side, those on our side, or those who cross to our side, have to follow those rules. Okay? Now, I tried to use a good analogy with this. I was having a conversation trying to break this part down in my head. How would be a good way to discuss immigration without flaring people up over right or wrong? It's not about me camping out necessarily on your lawn. It's like this. Let's say, Dada. I'm going to use Dada. We're going to make him the fool right now. Sorry. Dada just went to the grocery store and gets home and unloads his car, puts the groceries away, loads the toilet paper back in the cabinet, refills his razors, changes his toothbrush, puts a spare under the counter, and realizes there's this guy sleeping on his couch. Now, this guy just walked in the house and slept on the couch. Okay, well, you need a place to stay. Well, that's fine, I'll help you out for a day or two. And the guy starts eating the food out of his fridge and taking showers and using toothbrushes and soap and toilet paper and water and electricity. And the guy goes, well, I'll look for a job. I bought a couple of things for you, but it just never seems to add up to what's being spent in the house that he's just sort of consuming. Now, when someone comes across the border from Mexico into the U.S., let's start with, you didn't necessarily walk through a door frame. You climbed over a wall or broke into an unlocked door. Now, or a locked door, however, you broke in because entering into that house or entering into that country was unjustified. You didn't have the right to. It wasn't your property. And I'm not getting into the argument over 200, 300, 500 years ago what happened. That's not where this argument is. This argument is in today, and it is in reality. Now, that person who broke into your house is an illegal alien to your house, and they're consuming items that are in your house. You are freely giving them, in reality, health care, money, food, housing, utilities, and whatever else. And they may not necessarily be providing anything back in recompense to take care of. So, think of it that way. If an immigrant is going to come in here and help provide for what needs to be in the house, then they're not necessarily an immigrant. They're coming in to become a part of something. If someone comes in and they break in and consume things and don't replenish, that's wrong. That's unjustified. And most people won't take it. And the fight is literally that. People are coming in and seeming to take the financial buildup that this country has created and use it as their safety net because they weren't happy or didn't feel safe where they were. So, I try to think of it that way. I don't know if we have enough time for another topic, but let's chat with the chat. Let's see what I missed. Dada is always a fool. I don't pity Dada. Dada didn't invite the person in his house. The person walked in and stayed. But Dada's also not being given the opportunity to send the person back because, well, why? This is the part that I don't understand. Is that we're being told we can't send them back. Everybody in here who's ever had a job pays into Social Security. They pay into retirement. They pay into all of the fees and stuff that you're mandated to by having a job. We all know how this works. Now, those systems are set to collapse in so many years because of funds not paying out the way they should. So instead of preparing for that, and instead of trying to find ways to put more funds aside and fewer funds out, let's put more funds out and fewer funds aside and see how much faster we can burn this to the ground. That's what I feel they're doing right now. Patriot, one who loves and supports his or her country. For real, TCA, it's what the fuck, why? Nationalism, loyalty, and devotion to a nation, especially a sense of national consciousness, exalting one nation above all others, and placing primary emphasis on promotion of its culture and interest above all other nations. Am I saying that the United States is better than every other country in the world? No. Do I believe that? Yeah, I do. Why? Is it because they are? No. Maybe. It's because I live here and I've been treated well, and I've seen negative things from other countries that if I lived there, I wouldn't be treated nearly as well. I wouldn't live the life I live. And no, this isn't, what the fuck, white male patriarchy. This is opportunity. Now, I've noticed the more time passes, the less opportunity I seem to have. And you correlate this with the more time passes, the faster the increase of illegals into the country. 300% increase in illegals trying to come here with children that are not their own just to get into the country. We have 11 million people on DACA and 150,000 people on a Venezuelan reserve from 20-something years ago. It's beginning to get a bit ridiculous. It's not about the people being here. I have no problem with them being here. But when they come in, they need to come in rightfully. If we don't have enough jobs for every U.S. citizen, how do we bring in people to fill jobs that we don't have? There should be, in all rightfulness, in my mind, in any area in the United States you live in, there should be a surplus of jobs and employees needed. That is the only way to benefit, because then they compete for the employee. Right now, you have employees competing for jobs. If I'm competing with you for a job and you're willing to take 10 cents less, but I can't afford to go that 10 cents less, you get the job, I don't get anything. And therefore, they don't have to pay as much. They don't have to give you as many benefits and other things that you should get for being an employee. What you used to get 15, 20 years ago. Why people have the option in most companies to be able to put a retirement aside in the company is it was a benefit to working for that company. But now, you can be replaced as easy as a piece of paper. And your retirement doesn't matter. It's just a way for another company to collect taxes and fees off you when they get to collect that money from you. You don't get it all back. But I'm rambling on, and an hour has gone by. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave you on this note. Guys, I love doing this show. I love talking about these things. I do want to get more guests on here, so feel free to get hold of me. All of these conversations are for you to take on, carry into another stream, have another conversation. Let me know. I really want to hear it. With that being said, somewhere, I would ask that everybody look for the buttons that you lick, slap, kick, punch, whatever it is everybody says to do. Find the button you like to do it to and do it to that button. And enjoy your day. Thanks everybody for stopping by. Have a great one.